and exclusive news from around the world and more. Download the NDTV app today and get access to the best journalism and storytelling on your smartphone or tablet. The NDTV app. News that matters to you.
You know that the world's first smartwatch was like 1977 में develop कर लिया था. It was straight from HP. Yes, Hewlett Packard, जो laptop आज दिखता है HP के.
You are watching the World 24/7 on the NDTV network. I'm Parmeshwar Bafa. Let's begin with a quick look at the headlines we're tracking at the moment. Prime Minister Narendra Modi held delegation-level talks with the Austrian Chancellor in Vienna. This was the first visit by an Indian Prime Minister to Austria in over 40 years. Joe Biden's most important test will come today when he is set to hold a rare news conference that Democrats say will be critical to prove that he has the energy and mental agility to campaign against Donald Trump. A slow leak of Democratic lawmakers has begun to call for the US president to withdraw from the race in the wake of his debate performance. Israel's evacuation order for the entirety of the Gaza city is causing mass suffering, the United Nations has said on record. Bodies are filling the streets in Gaza City, and at least 30 Palestinians have been killed as Israeli soldiers storm the Tal al-Hawa neighborhood of the city, as per Gaza's Civil Defense Department. NATO members have agreed to set up a new cybersecurity unit aimed at warning military commanders of emerging hacking threats against the alliance. England beat the Netherlands 2-1 to reach the Euro final. England will now take on Spain in the Euro final on Sunday.
Hat-trick opportunity! 21 years of age.
Difficult phase, especially with last European Cup when they lost in the finals, missed the penalty, got a lot of abuse.
Well, it seems the case for Biden 2024 is weaker today than it was immediately after the first presidential debate. Joe Biden's candidacy is under question as the first Senate Democrat, Peter Welch of Vermont, and a ninth House Democrat publicly called for Joe Biden to end his campaign. Now, actor George Clooney, a longtime fundraiser for the Democratic Party, has also called for a new nominee to replace Joe Biden. Voters appear similarly unnerved. In multiple polls, I must mention, upward of 70% of Americans say Biden is not fit for a second term, and Trump's lead over the president has grown both nationally and in battleground states, despite the fact that Biden is drastically outspending his opponent on TV ads, an advantage that will soon disappear as the Republican begins tapping his own formidable campaign funds. Now, in light of all of this, the president's diehard supporters have been forced to lean on a variety of unsound arguments for his candidacy.
To the president to decide if he is going to run. We're all encouraging him to make that decision because time is running short. I think overwhelming support of the caucus, it's not for me to say, I'm not the head of the caucus anymore, but he's beloved, he is respected, and people want him to make that decision.
He wants to see the economy crash this year.
He stumbled, he stammered, he even stunned. And with a few months to November, he's playing straight into Democrats' worst fears, that he's fumbling away this election to Donald Trump.
Guess what? They're trying to push me out of the race. No! Well, let me say this as clearly as I can. I'm staying in the race. I'll beat Donald Trump. I will beat him again in 2020.
Concerns that Biden might be suffering from an undisclosed illness have risen since he stumbled, appearing frail and losing his train of thought at times.
Let us stand together, oh, at the cross, where I first saw the light, and the burdens of my heart rolled away. It was there by faith I received my sight, and now I am happy.
Joe Biden's candidacy is under question as the first Senate Democrat, Peter Welch of Vermont, and a ninth House Democrat publicly called for Biden to end his campaign. Actor George Clooney, a longtime fundraiser for the Democratic Party, has also now called for a new nominee to replace Biden and revealed the president he saw at a fundraiser in June was the same man we all witnessed at the debate. Many analysts point out that his gaffe streak has put his presidential candidature on the line, but the White House refuses to confirm or elaborate on a Parkinson's disease specialist's visits to the White House.
There's been a lot of speculation. What's Joe going to do? Is he going to stay in the race? Is he going to drop out? What's he going to do?
It is. You're asking me.
Kennard, come to the White House.
But I also said to you, Ed, I also said to you, for security reasons, we cannot share names. We cannot share names. We have to.
Others he would have met with.
We
but
cannot.
You can share names in regards to if someone came here in regards to the president.
We cannot share names of specialists broadly, from a dermatologist to a neurologist. We cannot share names. There are security reasons. We have to protect.
But US President Joe Biden is not being treated for Parkinson's disease and has not seen a neurologist outside of his annual physicals, the White House said, after the New York Times reported that visitor logs showed a doctor specializing in the illness visited the White House at least 8 times from August through March.
Well, I can tell you this, just going back to Parkinson's for a little bit, so to give you some answers here, has the president been treated for Parkinson's? No. Is he being treated for Parkinson's? No, he's not. Is he taking medication for Parkinson's? No. So those are the things that I can give you full-blown answers on, but I'm not going to confirm a specialist, any specialist that comes to the White House out of privacy.
Biden is battling criticism from some Democrats that he lacks the mental acuity to stand as the nominee against Trump in the November 5th presidential election. Biden has, however, said he will not abandon his campaign, asserting that he is not going anywhere.
In my experience, the last 2.5 years, I have not seen any reason whatsoever to question or doubt his lucidity, his grasp of context, his probing nature, and the degree to which he is completely in charge of facts and figures.
You got me, man. I'm not going anywhere. All right.
Publicly, Democratic officials continue to largely rally around Biden and argue that a lackluster debate performance doesn't determine the election. But privately, party insiders report that the whispers about Biden being too old have crescendoed. Analysts warn that one should expect the speculation about replacing Biden at the top of the ticket to grow to a fever pitch, loud enough that Biden will surely hear it and consider it in the Oval Office. Parmeshwar Bava for NDTV. Well, as Democratic lawmakers face competing arguments about whether Mr. Biden should be the party's nominee, for a quick comment on the current state of affairs, we have with us former U.S. Assistant Secretary of Commerce, Raymond Vickery. Always a pleasure to see you on air, Mr. Vickery. Straight up, is Joe Biden physically and mentally fit to lead the United States and the Democratic Party? Is he the right choice to be running for the post of the President of the United States?
Well, thanks very much for having me. I think there's no question that people were concerned about the president's failure to correct the stream of lies at the debate that came from Donald Trump. The real question here, of course, is can he do the job? Joe Biden has never been a terrific orator. He's overcome stammering as a young man. and his ability to analyze things and to stick to his job has been the high point of his presidency. He's been very much involved today and yesterday with NATO. The chief job of the president, of course, is to try to build peace and stability throughout the world. And all indications are that he's done a very good job. Tomorrow he will have an open press conference. You can bet that the press will be after him in the United States with everything they have. And I expect that he'll do well, just as he did in terms of the State of the Union message. So the question is he electable? Yes. Is he behind in the polls? Yes. But I can tell you, having been in politics for a long time, that 4 months is an eternity in politics, and there is a long way to go. But the basic answer is yes, he can do the job. The question is, who's going to be best to save the United States from Trump?
Well, let's hope that the next 4 months have better things in store for Joe Biden and his team. Thank you so much, as always, Raymond Vickery, for joining us on The World 24/7.
Thanks for having me.
With that, let's turn our attention to the other big story we're tracking. Well, the Prime Minister is back in the country. He had said on his visit to Austria that it's been historic and immensely productive. He has now touched down in New Delhi. But the Prime Minister asserted that new vigor has been added to the friendship between our nations. Mr. Modi urged Austrian business leaders to seize the burgeoning opportunities in India, highlighting the country's trajectory towards becoming the world's third largest economy in the coming years. In other crucial news, negotiations to secure a ceasefire in the Gaza War have resumed in Doha, with the intelligence chiefs of Egypt, the United States, and Israel in attendance. This is what Egypt's state-affiliated Al Qahira News TV and sources have informed us. Meanwhile, Israel's evacuation order for the entirety of the Gaza city is causing mass suffering. This is what the United Nations has said on record. Bodies are filling the streets in Gaza City, and at least 30 Palestinians have been killed as Israeli soldiers stormed the Tal al-Hawa neighborhood of the city, as per Gaza's Civil Defense Department. And Dr. Wailawa joins us to decipher the ground reality at the moment. Sir, Egypt, the United States and Israel's spy chiefs are attending Gaza truce talks in Doha. In the previous rounds of negotiations, Mr. Netanyahu has been blamed for sabotaging talks for political clout and to keep the war going. Realistically, can we expect anything different this time around?
Well, you see, the only U.S. have already taken stand to support Israel fully, militarily, politically, regionally, and globally. So there is no question of the United States being a peace broker in this deal. It's just a pressure applied by the United States on the allies like Qatar, where they are putting pressure on Hamas to succumb and come to the table only to surrender, which the Hamas have already made it very clear that they will not do so, neither by the pressure from the Qataris nor from the pressure from the United States. So the discussion is on. It's just like a palliative treatment. You're prolonging the life of Netanyahu in office and also prolonging and making the more suffering for the Palestinians.
Well, sir, a prolonged war also would harm Joe Biden's re-election campaign in November, experts say, as the United States president already faces plummeting public support for his unequivocal backing of Israel. Mr. Netanyahu's planned speech this month to the United States Congress, that also poses complex challenges. Help us decode what's happening. Politically, what is the United States up to?
See, the problem with the United States, irrespective whether it's a Democrat or the Republican, if you look at the debate between Biden and Trump, you would realize that both of them are showing a great support for the Israelis. So there is no matter whoever is in power. It's just a matter how the Israeli lobby and the IPAC play a major role in shifting gears of who is going to be more pro-Israelis. And I think that is what have more impact on the future of Israel and the United States relation. Remember, United States interest in West Asia is only gas, oil, and Israel-centric. So they wanted to continue with Israel as the dominant power, politically, militarily, and economically in the region. But having said that, I would say that also the Americans are unable to face the international criticism for their support, unending support to Israel. And I think there where we are facing the major problem for the United States, because internally, even with the the stringent law they are trying to put against the demonstration, anti-Israel feeling in the United States, they are unable to do it because they uphold the values of democracy and freedom of speech and all these that America have been trying to sell to the rest of the world in the unipolar world. The world is no more unipolar, and the United States realize that. And there are many voices in the South and even multipolar world where they wanted to see a change, and they wanted to see a restructuring of this war. And I think the outcome of this war in Gaza will also give the whole international community a voice to make sure that they respect and adherence to international law and UN Charter is a must for all the nation who is abiding who are member of the United Nations.
Well, as always, Dr. Awa, thank you so much for making time for us. With that, let's turn our attention now to France, where President Emmanuel Macron has put responsibility on Parliament to negotiate a broad coalition reflecting France's republican institutions to break the stalemate following an inconclusive snap election. Nobody won, Macron said in a written message to voters published in French regional newspapers about the election. Stuart Smith has the latest update from Paris for us as French President Emmanuel Macron calls on the country's political factions to form a coalition with a solid majority.
For the first time since the shock result on Sunday, Emmanuel Macron, the President of France, has given his outlook as to where the guardrails should lie with regards to how a government should be formed. He says, "I ask all political forces that recognise themselves in Republican institutions, the rule of law, parliamentarianism, a European orientation and the defence of French independence to engage in a sincere and loyal dialogue to build a solid, necessarily plural majority." So in that statement, a few lines being made clear about what Macron would like to see with regard to the new government. He says, first of all, that no one has won, which sounds uncontroversial. Indeed, no majority was formed, which is why this is difficult in the first place. But by saying no one has won, that goes against what the large left bloc has been saying since Sunday, which is that it won. It did receive the greatest number of votes, and it has been arguing, therefore, it should have the right to choose what kind of government is formed and be able to nominate someone within its ranks for Prime Minister. Another interesting thing that Macron said in his letter, Republican bloc, a signal that he would not be happy for a coalition to exist that includes what he describes as the far left, such as France Unbowed, nor the far right National Rally, the party that all this tactical voting was designed to prevent getting into government. And then the final thing he suggested was that there will be a little time for political forces to build these compromises. So no hurry, Macron is saying, to create this government, which necessarily will take a huge amount of debate to form. We've seen throughout the week since those results were first made public that there has been a lot of members of parliament ruling out working with some blocs and suggesting their preferred approach would be best. So, for example, lawmakers within the centrist bloc saying they'd be happy to work with the conservative right, but then other lawmakers within the centrist bloc saying they would leave and would vote against any kind of coalition with the right parties. Similarly, the left has said, the far left, France Unbowed, has said it would not work with any of Macron's candidates. So a huge amount of disparity in how the future may look, no agreement whatsoever at this stage, and not even a clear picture as to who may have the confidence of all of these various political groupings to take charge. We'll learn more on July 18th next week when the first session of the new Legislative Assembly comes together, which could also be the first time that the government, which has been asked to stay on since the past election as a caretaker government, it may face its first challenges then, if MPs aren't happy to let Gabriel Attal, the former Prime Minister, carry on even in a caretaker role. Stuart Smith, NDTV, Paris.
In other news, Microsoft and Apple dropped plans to take board roles at OpenAI in a surprise decision that underscores growing regulatory scrutiny of big tech's influence over artificial intelligence. Microsoft, which invested $13 billion in the ChatGPT creator, will withdraw from its observer role on the board. This is what the company said in a letter to OpenAI on Tuesday. Apple was due to take up a similar role, but an OpenAI spokesperson said the startup won't have board observers after Microsoft's departure. Well, the founder of Tech Whisperer, Jaspreet Bindra, joins us for further clarity. Thank you so much for joining us, Jaspreet. Many experts were actually assertive that 2023 was exploratory, 2024 is AI going to prime time. Why are we then seeing big tech giants distancing themselves from OpenAI?
Yeah, I don't think, frankly, that the companies are distancing themselves from OpenAI. Probably they're doing it in the public arena, primarily because of what you said. But all of the big techs, essentially, whether it be Microsoft or Amazon and some of the others, are facing scrutiny from the Competition and Monitoring Authority in the UK, from FTC in the US, from the EU, on their very close linkages with these new AI startups, especially OpenAI, and whether they are doing quote unquote acquisitions by other means, like Microsoft has done recently with Inflection. And so because of all this happening, I think most of the big techs are kind of creating a public distance between them and all startups, including OpenAI, while privately, I think they continue to work extremely closely with them.
But Jaspreet, can we expect more such probes into OpenAI? I mean, over a dozen of the biggest names in the United States tech industry have filed risk factor reports as far as the Security and Exchange Commission is concerned. Doesn't that indicate that artificial intelligence could threaten company finances? How will such probes impact the growth of artificial intelligence in business and other sectors?
Well, I don't think we'll see more probes into OpenAI. OpenAI is still seen to be a challenger and is still seen to be someone who's not really a big tech, which it isn't. But we will certainly see, I think, more probes into how the big techs are building these relationships with the OpenAIs of the world, and whether these relationships are very exclusive and therefore unfair to the general public. In some sense, the big tech companies have so far not been exclusionary. So, for example, Microsoft works with OpenAI very closely, as we know, but on their cloud, they also offer Llama from Meta. They also offer Claude. They also offer multiple other large language models. So at least for the business customers, there's a choice. What we need to see is that whether for our end consumers, whether that choice will be offered.
Well, Jaspreet, thanks so much for joining us as always. Let's get you a quick update from Washington now. NATO leaders jointly affirmed that Ukraine's future is in NATO and its path is irreversible as they pledged long-term support to Kyiv in the Washington Summit declaration. Joe Biden has said NATO members need to ramp up their industrial production to keep pace with Russia's manufacturing of military supplies. In fact, the US president said, "We cannot allow the alliance to fall behind." NATO members also agreed to set up a new cybersecurity unit. Now, that is aimed at warning military commanders of emerging hacking threats against the alliance. And the Integrated Cyber Defense Center's mandate will include sharing threat intelligence on cyber threats to private infrastructure that is necessary to support military activities. The center, though, will be based at NATO's military headquarters in Belgium. Well, news and updates continue in a moment. Don't go anywhere.
After a great victory by Indian team, and today we are reporting from Mohali International Airport where we're showing these visuals. Arshdeep हमारे साथ हैं.
बहुत ही performance सही सारे दी ते बढ़िया results मिले.
We are in the city of Kanpur today because
they have their champion back home, Kuldeep Yadav.
Desperation for each and everyone to go there and win the World Cup, and we did it.
Well, the sky is not the limit for the burgeoning space technology relations between the world's largest democracies, India, and the oldest, the United States of America. Speaking to NDTV science editor Pallav Bagla in an exclusive interview, Mr. Eric Garcetti, the US ambassador to India, said, "Our stars are aligning." Listen in to further details.
Ambassador Garcetti, thanks for speaking to NDTV. Are the Indo-US relations heading into a new orbit?
No question. And it used to be that we said that when it came to the United States and India, the sky was the limit. Today, we're going beyond the sky to the stars together, doing historic work together and learning from one another so we can learn more about our Earth and our heavens as one. We've been so impressed to see how far India has come just in the last year with the moon mission, what's coming soon with astronauts in space, and facilitating that was a key part of when President Biden hosted Prime Minister Modi last year in Washington, not only the signing of the Artemis Accords, but also saying that we would bring an Indian astronaut into space this year. Whether it's the Aperture work that we're doing together to look with an Aperture satellite at the work that we're doing here on Earth with climate change, or whether it's looking at cheaper and better and more secure ways, I say that India, when it comes to space, has the technology, has the techniques, and also has the talent to change our heavens and affect our Earth together.
So NASA, ISRO, going to explore the universe together?
Absolutely. We're like buddies in a space movie. I think we love the idea of working two democracies, the two largest democracies, you said, but with the same vision of a peaceful space that can be used in a way that can help us here on Earth, using technology for positive things like combating climate change and adapting to the extreme weather events that we're seeing, and also just knowing more. We think this is a quest for knowledge as well as a quest for peace together, and we're a perfect match when it comes to space.
Now we have the NASA ISRO synthetic aperture radar, the NISAR satellite, which I call the Nisarga satellite, and it's considered one of the single most expensive Earth imaging civilian satellites, costing $1.2 billion plus. How will it help monitor climate change, and how do you see this is the first time NASA and ISRO are jointly making a satellite?
Absolutely. You know, it is so exciting to see this satellite, which will go up this year. We're on schedule to make that happen. It's kind of like when we go to the doctor and we check our height, our weight, our blood pressure, our pulse. This will do this for the Earth. It's almost like being able to have a doctor in space to check on our temperatures, on the oceans and the ocean levels, to look at what's happening with everything from wind to sunlight, and to be able to see what is happening with climate change. We know here in India, over 800 million people are vulnerable when it comes to climate change. Just in the last month, we broke a record in Delhi with 127 degrees, over 50 degrees Celsius, and also with record rain. And right now, as we speak, people are feeling this every single day. And if we can put a satellite up there that our scientists can then look with richer, better data, we can save lives and we can help adapt to what's happening.
And finally, retirement is treating Roger Federer well, with the Swiss legend announcing himself as a Swiftie after attending Taylor Swift's concert in Zurich. Taylor Swift met Roger Federer backstage. Take a look.
What's your plan? Like, what are you going to do? You're going to just like do a show with like all the albums in it, and it'll be like, what? It'll be like a 3.5 hour long show.
Thank you for investing your time and watching this edition of The World 24/7. We'll keep tracking the latest for you. Do stay tuned.
Stay informed and entertained with the new and updated NDTV News app. You can watch all our channels live, listen to podcasts, read breaking and exclusive news from around the world and more. Download the NDTV app today and get access to the best journalism and storytelling on your smartphone or tablet. The NDTV app. News that matters to you.
This is a pub that was shut by the excise department. In fact, there was